It's a race against the clock to find the mother of Today's Show host Savannah Guthrie, as authorities say they still have no suspects in the kidnapping of the 84-year-old woman, despite receiving more than one ransom note. Plus, Charlie Kirk's accused assassin returned to a Utah courtroom where defense attorneys again pushed to disqualify the prosecutor's office from the case. And newly released autopsy reports reveal an Ohio dentist and his wife were shot a total of 16 times in their home, shedding grim light on the night they were killed by her ex-husband. All this and more this week on Courtroom Confidential. Lots to dive into this week. As always, we are honored you have chosen us to bring you these updates. I'm your host, Joshua Ritter, an award-winning Los Angeles prosecutor turned criminal defense attorney with 20 years experience navigating the criminal justice system, bringing you my unique insights from both sides of the courtroom. Today is Friday, February 6, 2026, and this is your Courtroom Confidential weekly roundup. Let's jump in. Arizona investigators say they have not identified a person of interest in the suspected abduction of Savannah Guthrie's mother, 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, who disappeared from her Tucson home. Authorities believe she was taken against her will and are investigating an alleged ransom note. FBI agent Heath Yonke said Thursday that ransom notes sent to media outlets were shown to the Guthrie family because they contained specific details, including deadlines and a mandatory demand. Authorities said one note includes two deadlines, one at 5 p.m. Thursday with no time zone specified, and another on Monday. The FBI also announced it arrested a person Thursday morning in connection with a fake ransom note. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos said investigators are working around the clock and urged the public to help, as officials announced a $50,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. Authorities also asked the public to report tips directly to the sheriff's office and warned against spreading misinformation. In a Wednesday social media post, the sheriff's office said the sharing of unverified accusations or false information is irresponsible and does not assist the investigation. On Wednesday, Savannah Guthrie and her two siblings issued an emotional plea for their mother's release. Let's listen.
We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen. Please reach out to us. Everyone is looking for you, Mommy, everywhere. We will not rest. Your children will not rest until we are together again.
That's tough stuff. Well, what's happening here? The way I see it, there are maybe 3 to 4 possible scenarios here. First of all, a residential burglary gone bad. Now, the chances of that, I think, are extremely low. There's no signs of that here. The first and foremost being, in a residential burglary gone bad, usually what we see is a dead person. We do not see a kidnapping. Why would you ever take the person? If you were surprised that someone was home, that person in a horrible situation simply ends up dead. You don't kidnap an 84-year-old woman in a residential burglary gone bad. What about a random kidnapping? Statistically, the chances of her being abducted randomly, some person choosing her home randomly, probably a better chance of her being abducted by aliens, quite frankly. It is so statistically low that someone would just randomly choose that home. Now, what about a targeted kidnapping? Somebody who knew who she was and targeted that house. Well, why Nancy Guthrie? Well, you could say, well, she's the daughter of Savannah Guthrie. Well, then why Savannah Guthrie? Is she an especially controversial figure? Not really. The host of the Today Show? Not all that controversial, not all that political. Is she especially wealthy? I don't think so. I'm sure that she makes good money for her hosting duties, but I doubt that she's the type of person to live this extravagant, opulent lifestyle, and neither does Nancy. We've seen her home now. This isn't the home of some palatial home that you would expect, hey, that might attract some attention. What about some person with bad intent who came into contact with her and learned who she was and somehow feels that this is their lottery ticket? Some person working on the home, some person working on the landscaping. Hey, do you know that she is the mother of this famous, wealthy TV host? And that person gets it in their head that, hey, this is my shot. That could be as well. Or another scenario is this the cover up for another crime? Is this the cover up for a murder that's already taken place? To act like it's a kidnapping, to send a fake ransom note, to throw people off the trail. All of these have possibilities. All of these have arguments. All of these have counter arguments. My point here is not so much to try to solve this mystery. It's to say it is a mystery, that we're still here several days in, nearly a week. It will be a week this weekend. And we're still no closer to having definitive answers on any of this as to what this exactly is. We don't know if she's alive. We don't know if she's dead. All we know is they can't find her. And they have, according to their own admission, no suspects, no persons of interest. Let's talk about this ransom note. Because right now, as I see the landscape of the law or of the evidence, they've told us that the surveillance has yielded no results, the surveillance cameras. The digital evidence so far has yielded no results. The DNA so far has yielded no results. So far, they've got nothing. But they've got this ransom note. If that's even legitimate, let's try to figure that one out. First of all, the note contains no proof of life. That is what the FBI told us. In their response to the note, the Guthries are asking for some sort of proof of life. And they're saying, listen, this needs to be legitimate because we know these things. We live in a time, they didn't use the words AI, but we know that's what they're talking about. We live in a time when that can be faked. We need legitimate proof of life before we're going to do anything. They're asking for millions of dollars to be sent in Bitcoin. One of the important things and interesting things about the request being in Bitcoin is once you send that, once you exchange something in Bitcoin, it is lost forever. It's not like a bank wire that can be returned and unwound. This is lost forever. So they're saying we need proof of life. And then we need some sort of means of communication. You haven't even told us how to contact you, how to let you know that we've sent the Bitcoin, how for us to know that you've received the Bitcoin, how for us to know how we can go get her, how we can go pick her up. Hopefully she's safe. None of that. In fact, the note apparently says there will be no further communication. Are these things the signs of a person who knows what they're doing or the signs of an amateur? For many people say this doesn't look like a person that knows what they're doing. It sounds like an amateur. There are, however, details we've heard in the note that seem to indicate it has information only known to the kidnappers or law enforcement. Now, that is going to become crucial. And the fact that we have not heard from law enforcement that these notes are illegitimate leads me to believe that there's something in there that they feel might be legitimate. And they're trying to get to the bottom of that. And that's why we're hearing these communications from the Guthrie family. One thing I want to clear up too, it has been reported that a person has been arrested for a fake ransom note. I've read that indictment. That person is not alleged to have created one of the ransom notes. That person is alleged to have contacted family members of the Guthries through text messages over the internet, VoIP type telephone numbers, encouraging them to send the Bitcoin. But in no way do they have evidence linking that person to the ransom. And in fact, that person, when interviewed, admitted everything, but said they had nothing to do with the actual note. So that person is exploiting the situation, but not in connection to one of the notes. So what leads do they have now? Like I said, they've got no DNA. or that the DNA that they have has not yielded anything. We haven't heard about any DNA coming back as unidentified. DNA that was found inside that home is either leads back to Nancy or to someone who has a legitimate reason for being in that home, another family member. The video, they've found nothing yet that is helpful to them. No suspect vehicle. Remember how important that was in the Koberger case? No, not even a suspect vehicle. No eyewitnesses, no surveillance in the area. They've got this ransom note. So what are we doing? Are we just waiting for these deadlines to pass? Are they just going to pay the ransom and hope? It's a really dire situation. But what do you guys think? What is your theory? I would really love to know. Please let us know in the comments. 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, accused of fatally shooting Charlie Kirk, appeared in a Utah courtroom Tuesday as a judge considered whether to remove the Utah County Attorney's Office from the case. Robinson's attorneys argue prosecutors mishandled a potential conflict of interest after learning a prosecutor's child was in the crowd when Kirk was shot. Prosecutors denied that the child's presence affected charging decisions, saying the 18-year-old Utah Valley University student did not witness the shooting or see any potential suspect. Utah County Attorney Jeffrey Gray testified the student was, quote, completely irrelevant to anything that matters in the case, and said he does not believe there is any conflict whatsoever, adding, I made that conclusion. I stand by that. Gray also defended keeping the child's father, Deputy Attorney Chad Grunander, on the case. Robinson's defense added Gray took an inappropriately casual approach, saying Grunander should have been immediately sequestered. Defense attorney Richard Novak had this to say to the court.
The decision as to what charges to file, the decision as to whether or not to seek the death penalty should never, ever have been made in consultation with Mr. Grunander, even if he's the most experienced homicide prosecutor in the office, even if he has one of the longest tenures, and even if it's Mr. Gray's ultimate decision.
Grunander testified prosecutors planned to disclose the connection once counsel was appointed and stressed that disclosure was made out of an abundance of caution, not because they believed it is an issue. Testimony from one lead investigator also revealed evidence found at Robinson's home that has not been reported to the public, including tools believed to be used to inscribe bullet casings and recently purchased shooting targets. Robinson has not yet entered pleas to charges including aggravated murder, felony firearm use, obstruction of justice, witness tampering, multiple victim targeting enhancements, and aggravating factor alleging a violent offense committed in the presence of a child. The judge is scheduled to rule on the conflict issue at a February 24th hearing. Robinson's preliminary hearing begins May 18th and is expected to last 3 days. Well, what's happening here? In my view, this is not a close call. I'm sorry. I know that I've seen some debate amongst experts. I do not feel this is a close call at all. A relationship between the prosecutors and the crime itself is not a pro se conflict. Does it raise a question? Sure. Should it be explored? Absolutely. But does that connection alone make them conflicted out? No. That's only one part of the inquiry. That's the first hurdle. So now they've established that. Okay, let's say this is a legitimate connection. You've got the daughter, the 18-year-old daughter of one of the prosecutors on the case, happened to be at an event with thousands of other people 85 feet away and did not even witness the event. But let's say, for the purposes of argument, that's enough to say there's a personal connection between the prosecutor's office and the crime itself. Great. That's step number one. Now what? Now you have to say that because of that connection, not only that prosecutor, but the entire office, all the way up to the top, to Jeffrey Gray himself, was so emotionally blinded by that connection, by that relationship, that they are unable to make decisions in an objective manner moving forward. This case, putting all of this aside, is an extremely strong case for the death penalty. If you believe the death penalty should be on the books, this is the type of case it's reserved for. An assassination. An assassination based upon somebody's First Amendment rights based upon somebody voicing their opinions that, granted, are controversial. Granted, many people don't agree with. Many people don't strongly don't agree with. But that is why he was killed. And if we're not going to say that that deserves the greatest punishment, and we're going to say that a decision made to pursue that punishment in this case is inappropriate, I think it's a clear call. I think it's a clear call, and I think it's a clear case without any conflict. So why is the judge entertaining this? Many have said, well, the defense is just doing this to delay things. Yes. My follow-up is, so that's kind of the defense job, right? They're in their lane, by the way. They're doing what they should be doing. They're defending their client. They're doing it zealously. They're pursuing every lead. They're turning over every possible stone. And if that includes delaying things, then so be it. It's not a ridiculous argument, by the way. I may think it's a clear-cut argument, but I'm not saying it's ridiculous. What's ridiculous is the judge letting them swallow up several days of court time to pursue this argument. The judge should have cut this off long ago. I understand giving them plenty of rope, and I understand giving them wide latitude to fully voice their arguments on this case. It is a death penalty case, and they should be given that, and that's appropriate. But we're now going into day number 3, and he still hasn't made a decision. This is an issue that is not huge in this case. Would it have a huge impact if he decided to remove the attorney's office? Absolutely. But is this issue the most complex issue that will come up in this case? Not by a long shot. And so for the judge to be taking this much time gives me pause as to whether or not this judge is in over his head. Now, is he finding his guts in all of this? I think maybe so. He has denied their request, the defense request, to have the AG appointed even to argue the conflict issue. He said, no, that's a bridge too far. He did limit arguments. He said, you've only got so many minutes to argue this. He did not allow for further briefing. He said, you've got enough here. I've heard all the evidence. I don't need more. So maybe this is a sign of good things to come. But what do you guys think? Tell me what you think about this, Judge. I would love to hear in the comments. Newly released autopsy reports showed that Ohio dentist Spencer Tepe, age 37, and his wife Monique Tepe, age 39, died within minutes after being shot multiple times inside their Columbus home on December 30th, while their 2 young children were inside the residence. The Franklin County coroner ruled both deaths were homicides caused by multiple gunshot wounds. Monique's ex-husband, Michael McKee, has been arrested and charged with their murders. Spencer was shot 7 times in the head, neck, torso, and upper extremities, suffering fatal injuries to his brain and lungs and extensive internal bleeding. The coroner determined that he died within seconds to minutes. Monique was shot 9 times in the face, chest, torso, and arms, with death also occurring rapidly. Toxicology reports found no alcohol or illicit drugs in either victim. Medications, including an antidepressant and antihistamines, were found in Monique's system. McKee pled not guilty to 4 counts of premeditated aggravated murder with firearms specifications and aggravated burglary. His next court date has not yet been scheduled. What's happening here? Well, what can we learn from this? He unloaded his weapon. They said 16 shots total. Modern day firearms with a 9mm can carry 15 in the chamber and 15 in the magazine and 1 in the chamber, 15 plus 1. He unloaded a fully loaded handgun. Now, we also know that the shots were at their face, at their chest. You could read into that. I'm no forensic psychologist. I'm no profiler, but I can read into that and say that he wanted to destroy these people, essentially. I know that the word overkill is going to be used quite a bit in this. He also used the silencer. What can we learn from that? Shooting off 16 rounds, that's going to cause a lot of noise. Middle of the night, even inside somebody's home, people are probably going to hear that. Neighbors. He used a silencer. So did he have zero fear that this middle of the night murder, unloading his weapon, would cause any alarm. I think he fully intended to escape from all of this. I think he fully intended to get away with all of this. I do not think this is one of those things where he had lost any hope of committing this murder and moving on with his life. And I think we're also learning a little bit about who is the target here. Talked a lot about his animosity, his growing anger, his obsession with Monique. But he put just as many bullets, nearly, into Spencer as he did into Monique. He was not an afterthought, in my view. Again, I'm no psychologist and I'm no profiler, but that's how it appears to me. And the other thing I think about, and this is tragic, is they have had wounds that have been described by experts as perhaps defensive wounds, meaning that either one or both of them may have been unconscious, may have woke up during this attack, if they were in fact sleeping at the time, which is still yet to be determined whether or not they were sleeping and he snuck in, or one of them answered the door and he forced them back into their bedroom with that gun. Which brings me to my next point. There are still many, many questions in this case. How did he get in? That's the biggest question to me. Was he let in? Did he break in? Did he have a way of getting in? Did he know how? Had he been there before? We know that, and figured out a way to get in. Why was he so obsessed? A short marriage 8 years later? Why? What about this person who, by the way, has no criminal record, lives a professional life, a high achiever? Why so obsessed? And why now? Even if you are obsessed, why now? What happened? What triggered him? What, after 8 years of this obsession and hatred, did he finally decide to take this murderous step? End of the day, though, this new information, does it change anything for this case moving forward? Not really. We've always believed it was premeditated. He's still looking at life without parole. It's interesting evidence. It will be helpful to the prosecution, but I don't think it really changes how this case is going to proceed or how we view it. But what do you guys think? What is your theory as to why this murder happened now? That's one of the biggest questions to me. Why now? After all these years, why this moment? Please let us know in the comments. Before we dive into the other cases making headlines this week, I have one small favor to ask, and that is, if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel now. It's completely free, and it's a great way to support the channel. We want to continue to bring you the highest quality content that we possibly can, and the best way that we can do that is through your support. Also making headlines this week, a Virginia man has been found guilty of killing his wife and a stranger he lured to their home in what prosecutors described as an elaborate plot to be with the family's au pair. Brendan Banfield, age 40, was convicted of 2 counts of aggravated murder for stabbing his wife, 37-year-old nurse Christine Banfield, to death in their home and fatally shooting 39-year-old Joseph Ryan. Prosecutors said Banfield catfished Ryan on a fetish website, pretending to be his wife to lure him to the house under the guise of a consensual, fake sexual assault scenario with the goal of framing Ryan for the murder. After nearly 9 hours of deliberations over 2 days, the jury returned its verdict Monday afternoon. His sentencing has been scheduled for May 8th. He faces a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Prosecutors accused him of plotting the murders with the family's au pair, 25-year-old Juliana Perez Magalhães. Magalhães was initially charged with second-degree murder, but later pled guilty to manslaughter in exchange for her testimony against Banfield. She faces up to 10 years in prison and is scheduled to be sentenced Friday, February 13th. I really think that au pair might have gotten too sweet of a deal. The Utah mother accused of murdering her husband and writing a children's book about grief has been denied a second request to move her trial from Summit County to Salt Lake County. Kouri Richins is charged with murder and attempted homicide in the March 2022 overdose death of her husband, Eric Richins. She has pled not guilty to all charges and has been held without bail since. Prosecutors allege her motive was partially financial, and she also faces dozens of felony charges in separate financial case. Attorneys for Richins again argued that Summit County cannot provide a fair trial, citing juror questionnaires showing that 85% of roughly 1,700 residents surveyed said they knew about the case. Prosecutors argued the responses were consistent with earlier community surveys the judge reviewed last April when he ruled the case would remain in Summit County. On Monday, attorneys and prosecutors began narrowing the jury pool based on questionnaire responses. Remaining jurors will be called for in-person questioning starting February 10th. Utah law requires 8 jurors and 4 alternates, and jury selection is expected to wrap up by February 18th. Judge Mrazek also extended the trial by 2 days, adding March 13th and 20th. The trial remains scheduled to begin February 23rd and conclude March 26th. Good for this judge for keeping this case on track. It's a breath of fresh air. Before we get into the rest of the week's cases, here's something worth thinking about as the new year gets underway. A lot of people reset their passwords, clean out their inboxes, and assume that means they're starting the year fresh. But the truth is, if your information was already exposed last year, the risk doesn't reset on January 1st. Data brokers and hackers are still out there, and your personal information may already be circulating without you even knowing it. That's why starting the year protected matters. That's why I use this episode's sponsor, Aura. Aura provides full digital security, so you're covered even when breaches and scams happen. You get dark web alerts, bank fraud monitoring, a VPN, antivirus, and password manager, and up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all in one app. Try Aura free for 14 days at aura.com/courtroomconfidential. You'll see exactly where your info's being sold and get it removed. It's free to try, it protects you, and it helps support the show. Nearly 2.5 years after a jury convicted him in the murder of his former brother-in-law, a Florida man is now seeking to overturn those convictions on appeal. Charlie Adelson was convicted in 2023 of first-degree murder, solicitation, and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder in the 2014 killing of former Florida State University professor Dan Markell. In January 2025, the appellate court denied a defense motion asking it to relinquish jurisdiction back to the trial court. The First District Court of Appeal heard oral arguments Tuesday. Adelson was not present, but was represented by attorney Michael Ufferman, who argued that trial judge Stephen Everett erred by denying a change of venue. Ufferman said the jury was inherently biased due to pervasive media coverage. The judge noted that under Florida law, the defense must submit a formal written motion to change venue after a jury is sealed before it is sworn. Ufferman countered that the defense never waived its objection to the jury and argued that even if it had, the waiver should be considered fundamental error, which would then be considered for the case to be overturned. Representing the state of Florida, Charles Lee argued the defense waived the issue by accepting the jury without objection and said any claim of structural error was moot because it was not raised in the initial appeal briefing. The panel did not issue an immediate ruling. Decisions from the court are typically administered within 60 to 90 days. Good luck on this one, sir. Seems like a stretch to me. Week 2 of the sex trafficking trial of 3 wealthy brothers is wrapping up, and each sibling has now watched from the defense table as a woman told the jury that he raped her. Accusers described being drugged, overpowered, or filmed while barely conscious, and none reported the assaults to police. Tal Alexander, age 39, and Orrin Alexander, age 38, sold multi-million-dollar real estate in Miami and Manhattan, while Alon Alexander, Orrin's twin, is a former executive at their parents' private security firm. All 3 are held without bail and face a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. The first accuser, testifying under the pseudonym Katie Moore, described a 2012 Manhattan incident with Tal and Alon, saying she collapsed at a nightclub after one sip from a drink given by Tal's friend. When she awoke, she found herself naked on a bed in the brothers' Manhattan apartment. The defense contends Moore consented and repeatedly lied to conceal it from her boyfriend. The second accuser, testifying under the pseudonym Maya Miller, testified about a 2016 Hamptons incident. She said Tal chased her into a bedroom shower, grabbed her by the neck, and raped her. The third accuser, testifying under the pseudonym Amelia Rosen, testified she was 17 in 2009 when Orrin, age 21, and another man videotaped themselves having sex with her. Rosen has no memory of the evening and only learned of the video after prosecutors contacted her. The trial is expected to last through February. I will say it's one thing to tell jurors don't believe the victims, but it's another thing to tell them don't believe your own eyes. Before we get to what's coming up next week, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being a part of this growing community, but I wanted to give a very special shout out to Mimi for your comment on Spotify, and to our CC crew members, Sigma Grams and It's Me D, for your comments on YouTube. We can't thank you enough for your continued support. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and leave us a comment on YouTube. We appreciate your help in spreading the word about Courtroom Confidential. On the docket for next week, trial for Colin Gray, the Georgia man whose son is accused of killing 4 people and injuring 9 others in a 2024 high school mass shooting, is set to begin Monday, February 9th. Opening statements in the trial for Michigan man Dale Warner are tentatively scheduled to begin on Tuesday, February 10th. Warner is accused of killing his wife, Dee Warner, and hiding her body in a large gas tank. South Carolina's highest court will hear oral arguments on Wednesday, February 11th, as Alex Murdaugh appeals the double murder conviction stemming from the deaths of his wife, Maggie, and son, Paul, in 2021. California woman Ashley Buzzard, charged with first-degree murder in the shooting death of her 9-year-old daughter, Melody Buzzard, is set to return to court for a hearing on Wednesday, February 11th. It ends with Us co-stars Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni have a settlement conference on Wednesday, February 11th. And usually I would invite you all to join us for Sunday Fun Day, but this week we thought it would be nice to give everyone a break to enjoy Super Bowl Sunday. That is it for us this week, folks. I'm your host, Josh Ritter. You can find us on social media at CR Confidential on X, at The Courtroom Confidential on Instagram, or at thecourtroomconfidential.com. Thank you again for joining me. Have a great weekend, and I will see you again next week for another episode of Courtroom Confidential.